I'm either rolling it in a way that makes him let go, or I'm affixing his hand in place and withdrawing my sleeves.
All right, let's talk about how to break some of these grips.
Yeah. So the collar grip and the sleeve grip are probably the main ones.
The collar grip is probably the biggest pain in the ass, so let's spend some time on that one first.
Yeah, so if you're playing guard and you're gripping my collar, that's bad for me. As far as how to break this, we've got like kind of 3 directions that we'll be going, right? There's up, there's down, and there's away. And oftentimes one will not be enough. So like if Rory just did the simple like rope style, then I can just pretty much go up and break it very easily, or I could just go away and break it very easily. But as Rory starts to create more directional problems for me with that twisting and rolling, if I just go away or just go up, not super useful. So one thing we always want to keep in mind is that the weak point of a grip tends to be against the thumb, or where whatever connection we're trying to make with our fingers is as tenuous as possible. So it may behoove me to grab my own gi and block his thumb and try to open it up as I pull away in a twisting fashion. So I'm basically using the same principle in reverse. He's twisting, so I'm continuing the twist where I'm starting to externally rotate his wrist. If I just pull here, this doesn't affect this as much. Even if I manage to like block his, this can be very difficult. But if I'm rotating this out and pulling this to me, you can see how like I'm slightly affected. Yeah.
Because that's another important thing about like that might be quite subtle in the movements. Rob's really incorporating his entire body here. I have this anchored arm in place, and I should be in relatively good alignment. If Rob just tries to use only his arms or his hands, and it's just his shoulders working, it's pretty weak. Even like that first one that he did where he framed underneath, he starts backing up with his body at the same time as he's extending. Becomes much harder to hold on to than if he just tries to have an arm versus arm battle.
And so if I'm doing that grip break, so again, we call this the Superman grip break, hopefully for evident reasons, right? I'm turning my body and I'm pulling his wrist away from me. If I were to do this kind of style grip break, I'm not just pushing up and away, I'm pushing up, away, and I'm backing up if I possibly can. Standing, it's a lot easier for me to back away in certain circumstances. If Rory's got me in closed guard,
this is where it becomes real hard.
Yeah, like I can't really back away too much because his legs are encircling me. So I'll be utilizing the same kind of twisting principle, which is if I externally rotate his arm, it's going to help me. If I just do a pushing kind of motion, it's unlikely to be particularly useful. So whether it's closed guard or not, if we go back to just my hips being unencumbered, I will be twisting this away as I punch it up and away from me, and now I can immediately re-grip him and start to become offensive. So that's the main one. That's the most important one, is knowing how to break a collar grip, because that will get your posture messed up in a real hurry.
Absolutely. When we're looking at like wrist grips, when Rob gets like a cuff here, there's going to be it's going to be dependent on how he has his grip. Like Rob is rolling up deep and he's punching the knuckles here, and he's going to be trying to follow me here to make it more difficult. There's going to be a lot of times when you're just getting gripped at first that the grip's going to be quite weak. Depending on the gi you have too, you might have these massive wizard sleeves that gives you like this a lot of room to move, that we're looking at creating circular directions. Because right now Rob's got this strong grip where the hook is engaged, that if I try to row backwards, it's row versus row. But if I go
and I'm not even really having a row, it's more row versus hook. I'm not using a lot of tension here, which, when it comes to gripping, if I'm overly squeezing, that's incorrect. I want to use mechanical, like just wedges and friction.
So here I'm just going to go in a circular direction to take the grip in a weak part. We start to see how I'm internally rotating his arm, and I'm able to put my palm against the side of his hand, so that now I'm going to be able to access his hand as his arm as a lever as I push. So you can see the different dynamic here to be able to break that grip. Or anytime when we're breaking a grip, it's a great idea to make a grip off of that. So whether I go into like a C grip, or we're going to a no-gi style, or as I start to get inside, I start to look to make that cuff grip or more of a pistol grip, so that then as I break it, if Rob tries to move right now, I've now turned it into my favor. Because anytime he has an attachment, while it's a real pain in the ass, it also can potentially be a gift where I know where that arm is. And especially if he's holding on really tight, I'm going to be able to get it, versus if we're hand fighting out at this range, at this engagement phase, it's going to be quite difficult for me to snatch his arm out of thin air. Once he has that connection to me, it is a disadvantage. We want to deal with it, and we'd rather not let it happen, but we can sometimes take the gift that's been given to us. So Going either direction, preferably, I like to go down and around because I want to get towards the back of the hand and create that internal rotation. But we certainly can go over top this way too. Depending on how he's got that grip of the gi, sometimes you'll be able to even just keep twisting it around, and I won't have much of a grip established, but it's just going to start tying up his fingers and breaking the structure of the fingers, the wrists, and upwards towards the elbow.
And then the other style of grip break that you'll see on the sleeves is this kind of punch style grip break, where I'm going to, punch style, I'm going to palm strike right at the knuckles. I'm using my ulnar bone. How you employ this, based on how much you like your training partners, you may want to do it more of like a placing and then pushing as you withdraw your arm. If you don't like your training partner so much, it can just be a pretty ballistic sort of strike. But the combination of pushing the hand away, again, I'm trying to push the weak part, the open part of the grip away from me as I pull my elbow towards me. So I'll be performing a rowing motion with my, in this case, my left elbow, and blocking this. And again, how quickly I combine these will decide how much my training partners like me. In competition, you do this as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, and with the legs, it's even easier because we have such a significant strength advantage. So it's not just an arm versus arm. So yeah, if Rob is here, if I get this is where like proper frames, body weight, learning how to really use these grips so that I can overcome those advantages that Rob has is huge. But if I just have this grip and Rob's able to circle his leg, man, it's really hard for me to stop. Even if we have like the actual grip at the ankle here to get better leverage, it's Rob's leg versus my arm. So unless I'm able to use my body effectively, it's very difficult. So as soon as people start getting grips on you, Rob starts immediately circling. It's really easy for him to counter grip at this point because his arms are free. So he's able to take this grip that I gave him and now pummel into like the inside space and immediately start turning it into an advantage.
So we had a simple frame lever battle. Rory was utilizing a frame. I managed to change the angle and make that frame into a lever, which now allowed me to affect his torso. And then as I make supplementary grips, I can really start to use that to affect him.
And so I guess the second part that I'd like to add, that sometimes there's grips, especially when you're learning or depending on the person you're going up against, good luck breaking those things.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to learn to kind of live with it and deal with it. And the most important thing is anchoring those the limbs that they're controlling, which is usually going to be the arms, to make sure that they're not going to be controlled freely as a lever. So if we look at close guard,
we call it grip matching usually.
Grip matching.
Yeah.
So here, if Rob's got control of my sleeve and I let him have that grip, and I'm trying to beat it here. Right now I have my arm open
Or grip
up.
anchoring.
Yeah. And here Rob's able to continually move my arm around. And this is bad. This is going to allow him to start bringing it across the body, anything that he wants. But if I realize that he has got this grip and I can't really break it right now, if I can anchor this, whether it's to his gi, to his belt, or to his pants, now with that I can create a load-bearing frame by putting weight into it, by having tension through my arms, so that now as Rob tries to move it, it's not going to happen. And now from here, I can either look to start breaking the grip in different ways, or sometimes it's just gonna, there's gonna be times where we're just kind of hanging out for a bit and be like, you gonna let go first? Or?
Yeah, so this is grip anchoring. What Rory did was grip matching. Yes. I controlled his left sleeve, he controlled my left sleeve. So now at least I don't have the luxury of bringing both arms into play. If he didn't do this, then I can definitely start grip breaking. I can become offensive again. So he did a grip anchor where he immobilized this arm so that I couldn't affect it, and then he grip matched. So now he's got some control of me. Right?
And that can look like, even at further ranges here, like as Rob tries to get grip here and he's going for more of like a spider guard situation where he's putting a frame foot on my bicep. Here, by me still even just gripping here more on the outside or underneath his legs, my ability to close my elbow and be strong here, so that if Rob tries to maneuver my arm around, I'm going to limit his ability. I'm still not in a great position. I can't really do too much off this, but if I didn't anchor this arm, this happens. Oh man, a massive open elbow. So don't let your limbs float around in space freely.
And the same thing would go in reverse order. If Rory grabs my pants and I just ignore it, then I'm 100% defending my guard and I might get past in a real hurry. But if I immediately grip match, now this becomes a scenario where I can start to become offensive as I break this grip. Now I can pull myself into a guard, I can start to attack him.
So this is where, unfortunately, some people get discouraged at the very beginning. And you'll see no-gi guys really hate the idea of training in the gi because it's frustrating, because all of a sudden there's now, it can sometimes be looked at as stalling, and it can be legitimately that, but it's also just frustrating to deal with because you're used to being able to move and you're unable to. And rather than trying to learn how to solve the problem, we they chose to move away from that. That's not the case for everybody, but it's something that I know was definitely something that was taking place for me when I was in development. But if you can learn how to deal with the gi and break those grips, you're going to be so much more effective at dealing with the grip fighting battle and the range battles within no gi.
Yeah, and if we just have to summarize it, pretty much what we're doing is either affixing something in place and pulling away from it or pushing away from it, or we're rotating it. Those are really the grip breaks that we're doing. Like if Rory grabs my pants, I'm either going to be able to roll around it in a way that breaks the grip, or I will affix his wrist in place by grabbing the sleeve, and I will kick my leg past it. Or like if he grabs my sleeve, I'm either rolling it in a way that makes him let go, or I'm affixing his hand in place and withdrawing my sleeve. So that's pretty much how we're breaking the grip. So if all of that blabbering that preceded this was too much for you, hopefully you waited till the end and now you can just see the quick version.
I'll cut that and I'll put it right at the very beginning so that then hopefully if they got back through,
they can skip it, yeah.